Welcome, friends. I'm Terrance MacArthur from the Fresno County Public Library, and this is Shamrocks and Leprechauns and Ireland, oh my. Now, or is it Leprechauns and Shamrocks in Ireland, oh my? Well, whichever it is, you are here, I am here, and I have a lot of stories that come from Ireland, the Emerald Isle, the land of the shamrock, the land of the leprechaun. Oh, this is my friend, Brian. He likes to listen to stories. I hope you do too. Now, well, he's a little fellow, isn't he? But he's, I guess you could say he's a leprechaun. And let me tell you a little story that I made up a long time ago. A leprechaun came walking in my garden in the morning. I crept up close behind him and I grabbed him by the toe. He hollered and he pleaded and he begged, "Please release me." I said, "You'll grant 3 wishes before I let you go." "Do you wish it?" "Yes, I do." "Very well, now what's wish 2? He laughed until I grabbed him tight and made his face turn blue. "My 2nd wish, a pot of gold that I can have, that I can hold." The gold appeared and it was fine. And then the little man said this line, "You said you'll grant 3 wishes? Well, the 3rd one will be mine. My wish is that my gold and I will forthway vanish from your eye." He disappeared, and as light dawned, I knew I had been leprechaunned. Now, Ferguson is a good old Irish name, and the story I'm going to tell you now is about Ferguson the Farmer. Now, Ferguson the Farmer was the best farmer in the whole area, and he went into town with his wagon full of potatoes, praties they used to call them there, and cabbages, and he had all these things, the best produce around. And he sold everything that was in that wagon, right down to the smallest potato. Yes. And he put all that money into a nice leather bag, and he was heading for home. As he came to a crossroads, out from a wall jumped a man with a gun. He said, "Give me all your money. I've got a gun." Oh, well, the man had a gun. So he took out that leather bag and Ferguson gave it to him. And the man started to leave. Sir, could you help me here?" "What do you mean?" "I'm not going to give you back your money." No. See, if I go home with no money, my wife is going to think I wasted it all. I went out drinking or I gambled, and I need to prove that I fought for it. "Well, what do you want me to do?" "Well, here, look, let's take my hat. I'll put it here on the fence post. Now, if you take your gun and shoot a hole through that hat." "All right, well, I don't want you to get in trouble with your wife." That's nice. And so he aimed, and there was a big hole right through the hat. And the man started to leave. Excuse me. I mean, that showed the fight, but that was a lot of money. So I really need to prove that I really fought for it. So, here. And he took off his coat. "Look, could you put a hole through this one?" "All right." and he shot, didn't even aim. Nice hole right through the coat. And he started to go, "Excuse me." "What is it now?" "Well, look, here, let's take my pants off and show that I really fought for it." I can't do it." "Why not?" "Well, I'm out of bullets." "You are?" Yes, I'm out of bullets." "Oh, well, that's what I was waiting for." And he grabbed the rope, tied up the robber, took back the bag of money, and the man's gun as well. And he got into his wagon and rode home to his family, where he was safe and sound with all the money he'd earned. Now, I collect folk tales from all over the world, and I love to tell them. But sometimes I can't find a story that is exactly the one I want, so I make them up. That's what I did here. You see, young Tom was a very good man, but he was lazy. He was really... How lazy was he? Well, he was so lazy. Well, you see, his father's name was Tom, and his name was Tom. So everybody called the father Old Tom, and they called him Young Tom. And when the father died, he was so lazy that he didn't change his name to just plain old Tom, and they still called him Young Tom. Now, one day, young Tom was doing what he liked to do more than anything else, sleeping in the shade of a tree. And he heard something. And he looked just a little bit with one eye, and then he had to really struggle not to jump up and with both eyes open and yell and scream, because what he saw was a little man, about this size. It was a leprechaun, all dressed in green and brown, and he was pulling a bag, a fabric sack, and he was complaining as he did this. "Oh, what a life! What a life! What do I have to do? I have to get up in the morning. People are always after my gold. So I have to dig up the gold, take it to a new place, dig and bury the gold, and then what do I have to do the next day? Well, I have to dig it up again and move it to another place. It's really too much for me." And he was pulling and grumbling and pulling, and an amazing thing happened. He pulled on that bag, and it ripped just a little bit, just enough that one gold coin fell out of the bag onto the ground. Well, and he kept grumbling and walking and grumbling and pulling, and until finally he was out of sight and out of sound. And then young Tom jumped up and moved faster than anybody had ever seen him in his life, and grabbed that piece of gold and put it in his pocket. And not having anything better to do, he lay back down under the tree to go to sleep. And he was almost asleep when he heard, and he opened his eyes, and there was the little man just in front of him. "Excuse me, my good young man, but I was traveling this way just a little while ago, and, well, I had 352 pieces of gold in my bag, and now when I count it, I only have 351. I was wondering, did you possibly see a piece of gold around here?" "Oh, I haven't seen as much of a halfpenny today. Oh, no, Well, but he could feel that, oh, that piece of gold in his pocket. Oh, thinking about all those things that he could do with that piece of gold made him feel warm, and yeah, even his hand was hot. Oh, so you're saying you haven't seen a piece of gold around here? Oh, I wish I had. It's not good to be poor. A man could do a lot with a piece of gold. I see. And you're sweating a bit here. Well, and it was so hot, and there was a slight scent of burning linen and smoldering leg hair. And the little man looked at him and said, so, you're telling me that you do not have my piece of gold? Do I look like a man with a piece of gold? And then suddenly, whoosh, flames shot out from the side of his pants and plop! The piece of gold dropped onto the ground. Do you look like a man with a piece of gold? Not anymore, you don't. And young Tom tried to move, but he couldn't get away. He couldn't move at all. He was frozen to the spot. The little man came up to him. Lie 3 times to a leprechaun, will you? It's not a smart thing to do. You must be punished, and this will be your punishment. Now and forever. No one will believe a word you say. Truth or lie, it doesn't make a difference. No one will believe you. And the little man turned around once, twice, 3 times, and he was gone. Well, that's what happened. No one believed a word he told them. No matter what young Tom said, they doubted him. In fact, after a while, they stopped calling him young Tom. They called him Lying Tom. And Lying Tom told me this story. Did I believe it? Well, but there's one thing I do believe. Never lie to a leprechaun. Long ago, there was a man, a poor man, who had 3 sons. And he wanted to make something of them in this world. And so he sold his soul to the devil. That's right. He sold his soul to the devil to get the money so that he could get his sons an education. And the first son, well, he became a priest. The second son, he became a doctor. And the third son, he became a lawyer. Well, 7 years later, the devil came back for the old man. Only the old man wasn't alone. One of his sons was there, the priest. And the priest prayed for help. And the priest quoted scripture to the devil. And finally the devil said, all right. You can have 3 more years. Well, and he left. He left the van. 3 years later, he came back to the old man who was with his second son, the doctor. And the doctor told about the wonderful things that had been done because of the money that had helped him to get an education. And the devil was a little prideful of his accomplishments. And so he said, I'll give you another 3 years. 3 years later, The devil showed up for this man, ready to take him below. Only the third son, the lawyer, was with him. And the lawyer said, "Look, you've given us 2 extensions already. I mean, there's no way that I would expect you to allow him any more time, but at least tonight. Could you just give us time together until that candle burns out?" It was a very small candle, just a stub, a small piece of a candle even. And the devil thought, "All right. Yes, I'll give you that time, and I will not blow that candle out. I will not touch the candle to stop it." Good. And so the lawyer picked up the candle and blew it out and put it into his pocket. Well, it hadn't burned out, had it? And so the devil had to leave without the old man. This is a story that has been told many times, so I'm going to tell it today. Jack was walking down the road and he heard something, a little tap, 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 tap. He thought he knew what that was. And he looked over the bush and there was a little tiny man, a leprechaun, who was making shoes. Well, that's what leprechauns do. Did you know that? They're the shoemakers for the fairies. And tap, 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 tap. Well, he grabbed that leprechaun and says, "Let me go, let me go." "No, no, no, no. You're going to give me your gold." "Well, I don't have it here." "Well, you're going to take me to your gold." And he took his red bandana, his kerchief, and tied his arms of the leprechaun. And they started off. And they went over the hill and down into the valley and across the river and through the woods to a big field of thistles. And they went into the field, and the little man said, "Dig right here. That's where the gold is." "Okay, but I don't have a shovel." "Well, you should have brought one." "Well, look, you go back and get it." No. If I go back and get it, you're going to move the bandana, move the kerchief to someplace else. I promise on a leprechaun's word of honor that I will not move that bandana. All right. And so Jack went back through the woods, across the river, down in the valley, over the hill, and back to his home. And he got his shovel. And he went back over the hill, and down in the valley, and across the river, and through the woods, and there was the field. Well, the leprechaun had not moved that kerchief. But there in that field of thistles, every single stalk of the thistle had a nice red bandana tied around it. And they all waved in the breeze. And so he tried to remember exactly where he was with the little man, and I think it was here. And he dug and got nothing. He tried over there. He dug. he got nothing. He dug and he dug all day long until the sun was going down. And all he had to show for it was a fine collection of red bandanas. And so he went back home with his shovel. And if you see Jack, you'll see him sitting there by the pub with his shovel. He says, you never know when you're going to need a shovel. The Irish legends of the Banshee tell of a female spirit who wails in the night, who cries out. And if you hear the cry of the Banshee, well, it means someone in your family or you will soon die. Now, I decided to, make a family-friendly version of that legend. Because if you look in a cave in Ireland, you have a real good chance of finding a banshee. Well, although you're less likely to find it than to hear it. Because, see, when something bad is about to happen, the banshee gets this strange feeling inside, and it kind of comes out in a loud cry, a scream, a wail. And when people hear it, they know that something bad could be about to happen. And so they're maybe a little more careful, and sometimes they're safer that way. That the trouble is able to be stopped. Well, so the banshees all wailed out in the night except for Bridget. Bridget was a bashful banshee. She was shy. When she got that feeling, that strange feeling that trouble was brewing, that trouble was on its way, she couldn't cry out. She didn't like to make noise. She didn't like to attract attention. And she would just kind of hug herself and hold on. And so she didn't give out a warning. And something bad would happen. Now, it might be something as small as burning a pancake. Or it might be that a tree would fall on a house. And she didn't warn anybody. The people said, what good is a banshee if it won't warn you about trouble? Well, and the other banshees, they said, if you cannot warn people, you'll be banished, you'll be cast out, you'll be sent away. Well, and she tried. Oh, she tried to call out, but she just couldn't do it. All she did was hold herself. Until one night, when the rains came down, and the wind blew, and the lightning flashed, and the thunder thundered. Well, there was a storm. And she was in her cave, around her fire, warming herself on that cold night. And she heard something. It's outside the cave. And she went outside the cave, and it was a little easier to hear it now, and there was a flash of lightning and crash of thunder, and in that light, she could see a little wet, gray bundle. It was a kitten. Oh, and hiding around the rocks when she was trying to go and pick up, but finally she caught it. And she put it into her scarf around her and carefully carried this little kitten into her cave. Oh, she dried it with towels, and she found some milk that she had, that she warmed it up for the little one and fed her. Oh, that's good. And to keep the kitten warm, she held it close to her body, and she started to have that feeling, that strange feeling, the trouble feeling. And could she cry out, make a wail sound? No, she couldn't. She just held herself tight, and she held the cat too. And the cat, and the sound echoed around the cave, louder and louder until it went out. And it could be heard for miles around, and down at the bottom of the hill, Mrs. O'Hara, she heard that sound. Something is wrong, something is wrong. And she looked out the window, and there was her cow out by the oak tree, mooing in the storm. Oh, so she rushed out. She caught that cow, and she brought it back into the shed. And just then, lightning struck that tree, and it crashed to the ground. The old oak fell right where the cow had been. Oh, that banshee yelled. That banshee wailed just in time to save my cow. Well, Bridget was a hero. The villagers were happy. The other banshees were happy. And Bridget was happy too, because she now had a friend, her cat. And whenever that feeling of trouble would grow inside her, she would hold that cat, and the cat would and people would hear, and they would be warned. She loved that cat, and she called it Trouble. But if you really want to know the truth, that cat was no trouble at all. Now, leprechauns are not the only wee people that are in Ireland, according to the people who live there. There's also the fairies. Now, and there was Lanty McCluskey. Now, Lanty McCluskey was a good man. He married a fine wife, and, well, he needed a place to keep her, a home. So, he bought about 6 acres of land, and he chose to build that house. There was this one round green spot. There was just the best land there. That's where he was going to build his house. But, well, it was the kind of place that they call a fairy dancer place, a fairy plot. And they told him, you shouldn't build your house there. It wouldn't be a good idea. You don't want to make the wee people upset. But he said, it's the best land I've got, and I'll go against all the wee folk of all of Europe. Well, and so he built his house, and it didn't take him long. He worked very hard, and soon he had a fine house. And, well, he was proud of it. And so a housewarming where you invite all the neighbors and all your friends and even some of your relatives, and you have a party, to welcome them all and show off your new house. Well, also, he brought his wife over first, and then he went out and he got himself a fiddler, and he got a fine set of whiskey for him, and he invited everyone else in, and they had a great time and even a dance that night. And as the sun fell into the darkness, and it started to get darker and darker in the night, everybody heard something. It was up there. It was like a groaning sound, a stretching sound, like the roof was being torn apart. And they heard little hands, like 100 hands working on this. And a voice cried out, hurry, come on. Yeah, we must be done with this. We have to have Lanty's house down by midnight. Lanty was a little surprised with this, and he started to think, oh, this is something that I really can't fight. And so he went outside and he said, gentlemen, I humbly ask your pardon for building on any place belonging to you, but if you'll have the civility to let me have tonight, I'll begin to pull down the house and take it apart tomorrow morning. Well, there's the sound of 100 little hands clapping, and oh, that was good. Hurrah for you, Lanty. Oh, and by the way, when you build your house, build it over by those 2 hawthorn bushes. Yes, on the other side of the road. That's a good thing. And there was a whoosh of all these little feet leaving, and it was silent. Well, he kept his word. The next day, he took down the house, took it apart piece by piece by piece. And then he went by those hawthorn bushes to build his new house. And he was digging his foundation out when he hit something. He dug around it. It was a pot. And he opened the pot. And there was gold. All these gold coins there in the pot. So, in leaving the fairies their play place, he was able to become a rich man. Richer than he ever would have been had he not had anything to do with the little fairy wee folk. In Ireland, there are many legends and creatures associated with these legends. You have leprechauns, there are banshees, and there are the fair folk, the fairies, and also the pukas. Do you know what a puka is? Well, a puka is a shape-shifting creature, and sometimes it will be a horse that will give person a ride of their life, going all over the place. Also, they can be maybe show up as a beautiful young woman. And according to some people, they may show up as a 6-foot-tall rabbit named Harvey. Well, but there was a young man who wanted to be a piper, Oh, he wanted to be a piper so bad. And he practiced and practiced. There was one song he could do, the Black Robe. That was the only song he could play. But he made some money off of it because people would have him come and play for them. And then they'd say, okay, now play this song too. And he couldn't do it. And they'd laugh at him. Well, he was on his way home from a party that he'd played at. And he was half drunk by then. And he's going along. And he came to the crossroads by the bridge on the way to his mother's house. And he put on the pipes and he decided to play the Black Robe. And while he was playing, a puka came up behind him, grabbed the back of his coat, pulled him up into the air, and landed on the back of the puka. Well, and he started to ride off with the young man. He says, you better hold on, because if you don't, you'll fall off and maybe break your head and your pipes as well. Well, where are you taking me? Oh, I'm taking you to play music for the banshees. They're having a party tonight. Well, I can only play one song. Oh, look, play Shan van Vloch. I don't know it. I'll play it and you'll be able to. All right. And he strapped on his pipes and he started to play, and it was so good. He was doing this beautifully, the best he'd ever played, and this was a song he didn't even know. And so they went on and on over the hills, through the bushes, crashing through fences until they came up to the mountain. And the puka stomped his hoof twice, and the mountain opened up, and they went down into a huge room with a golden table, and 100 banshees were sitting around that table. And they said, oh, 1,000 blessings on you, puka. Who have you brought to us? I brought you the finest piper in all of Ireland. Oh, so now play for them. And so he started to play. And he played, and he played, and the banshees, the old women, they danced all over, and they danced until they were tired, and then they kept dancing. And the puka said, all right, it's time to pay the piper. And so each one drew out a piece of gold and gave it to the young man. Oh, I'm as rich as the son of a lord. And so come with me and I'll take you home. And just as they were about to go along, the oldest of the women, she came to him and gave him a set of pipes, a new set of pipes, brand new. And so they went back over the hills and through the bushes and crashed through the fences and everything until they came back to the bridge. And the puka bounced him off onto the ground. He says, see you maybe sometime. And he was gone. Well, the young man, the piper, went back to his mother's house and said, oh, I'm as rich as the Lord. You're drunk. No, not really. And so he told the story of what had happened, how he'd gone with the puka, how he'd learned to play things, and how he came home, and how he was paid. The mother looked at all this gold. Wow! And so in the morning, she looked at the gold again, and it wasn't gold anymore. All it was leaves, dried leaves. And the young man took the new set of pipes and he started to play. And oh, it was the sound of geese and goats and cows, and loud and noisy, and all of the neighbors were, "What are you doing?" Just give me a second here. And he put away the new pipes. And he took his old pipes. And he started to play. And oh, he could play any song that they asked for. And it was beautiful and wonderful. And, well, to this very day, they say, he's the best piper in all of Ireland. Gaelic, the language of Ireland, is a musical language. It's a thing of beauty. And one of the best ways it's used is in toasts and in blessings. And here's a few as kind of a close to our program that I really love. May the roof above us never fall in, and may the people gathered below it never fall out. May those who love us, and those that don't love us, may God turn their hearts. And if he cannot turn their hearts, may he turn their ankles so that we can know them by their limping. May you live as long as you want and never want as long as you live. As you slide down the banister of life, may the splinters never point the wrong way. May you get all your wishes but one, so you always have something to strive for. If God sends you down a stony path, may he give you strong shoes. May you be in heaven half an hour before the devil knows you're dead. And probably the most favorite and famous, known as the Irish blessing. May the road rise up to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face, the rains fall soft upon your fields. And until we meet again, may God hold you in the hollow of his hand. See you.